Here we are with June 2022 market dynamics. This is for Ada and Canyon County existing home sales. We're going to cover a deep dive into everything that took place in June of this year and then compare that to what happened this time last year, and then kind of go into our predictions and expectations for the rest of the year. I will include the timestamps in this video. This video is just going to be the slideshow because I have all the information in here. So first off, let's get into those highlights because I know this video is going to be far too long for many of you. So here's kind of the gist of it. First off, the frenzy that we've been experiencing over the past 2 years is over. Officially over. We are no longer seeing crazy over asking price, multiple offers on every single listing, overprice it and it sells regardless, just because there aren't any homes available and there's way too much demand happening. That is no longer the case. Leading right into inventory is continuing to rise. We've actually had the highest amount of inventory that we've had for 6 years. Summer of 2016 was the last time we had this many available homes for sale, waiting for buyers to buy them at one time in Ada County. So 2016 was the last time we've had this many available homes. It's amazing to have options now for buyers. On the flip side of that, as supply rises, we have demand, which is continuing to soften. This is likely due to higher interest rates and economic uncertainty of the looming recession that you're seeing in national news and the national economy, and just reports that we're seeing indicating that we're either in or headed to a recession, very likely. And as you know, with supply rising and demand dropping, basic economics means prices are going to come down. Well, we haven't quite seen that yet. Average sale prices are no longer rapidly appreciating. If you remember, last year we saw Ada County appreciate. Average sales price went up 35% almost in 1 year, which is super unhealthy, drastic, fast growth. We're not seeing that anymore, thankfully. We haven't seen prices come down yet, though, either. They haven't depreciated. Just the rapid appreciation has completely slowed down. In fact, we're still appreciating for the year, but prices are likely not going to appreciate drastically like we saw the last couple of years, which is a good thing. And we haven't seen prices really come down yet either. Absorption rates also still show that we're currently experiencing a seller's market. Right now in Ada County, we're under 2 months, or we have 2 months supply, and under 4 months is considered a seller's market. Between 4 and 6 months is considered balanced. Beyond 6 months is considered a buyer's market. And so we're still solidly in that seller's market column, though as inventory rises and demand levels off, we're likely to see that head toward closer to balanced territory, and I wouldn't be surprised if we saw that potentially by the end of the year or beginning of next year, getting into that balanced territory. I highly doubt we're headed straight to a buyer's market. That's usually not how the pendulum swings, but we are headed toward that balanced territory, which again is a good thing, leading to the next point, which is negotiations are finally happening again. We are seeing counteroffers, we are seeing inspection repair requests. Things are just becoming a little bit more fair for buyers and less just advantageous, I guess you could say, for sellers. It's still a great time to be a seller because you're still getting great terms. Prices aren't coming down yet, but you are back in the days where you're negotiating with the buyer over counteroffers when you're writing an offer, and you're negotiating with the buyer over things that need to be repaired in order for them to move forward. Contingencies are part of the contract again. No longer are the days where, you have to waive inspection, you can't have an inspection, you have to waive appraisal, and all of those things. You have to give earnest money up really early, stuff like that. It's just not happening anymore. We're kind of back to a more fair territory, even though we're still experiencing technically a seller's market. And leading into that, it's still a good time to buy or sell, depending on your individual needs. It just is slower than what we've experienced over the past couple of years, so it'll feel drastically different if you were in the market in the last couple of years. Right now, it'll feel drastically different to what you had experienced. And to couple that off with sellers, especially if you were considering moving, but the last couple of years you were very worried about finding the next place. Like, yeah, I'll sell no problem, the market's super hot, but then I'll end up homeless because there's no available homes to move into. Well, now you have way more opportunities than you've seen over the past couple of years, so it could be a great time if you're a seller that's been considering moving but we're worried about finding a place, because now that we have options, you're more likely to find a place that's going to work for you in your timeline more easily. So that's kind of the gist of everything that's happening. First off, as always, let's start with Ada County and the overall here. We're going to jump into the market trends chart, shows our supply and demand, and we have last June compared to this June. The red line is the number of available homes active for sale in Ada County, the gray bars being pending sales, and then the black bars being closed sales. So as you can see, we have almost 1,400 available homes for sale in Ada County compared to last year at this same time, 479 available homes in Ada County. And then the year before that, in 2020, 484. So this is nearly, 3 times as much as what we saw last year and essentially the year before as well. So that's incredible because we finally have homes to choose from. Buyers finally have those options that we've been looking for. And then when you're looking at the number of pending home sales, 563 compared to 834 last year. Now that's down about a third, 30% or so. And then when you're looking at compared to 2020, when we know the summer was absolutely insane, we saw a little over 1,000. So almost half of what we had demand-wise in 2020 compared to what we have now. So that's, again, going to contribute to prices stabilizing, leveling off, potentially coming down a little bit. We have not seen prices come down officially yet. They're just the rate of appreciation has come down to a more reasonable level. Speaking of the rate of appreciation, let's just dive right into that. So far this year, Ada County has appreciated by 5.5%. So the average sold price has come up 5.5% in Ada County with a new average sold price of just over $606,000. If you were here for last month's deep dive, these numbers were incorrect. So I apologize about that. We saw, I think it said 7% and like 615, but in actuality it was 602 was our average sold price at the end of May. So 602, we're still appreciating from that, but the 5.5% is lower than the 7.5% that was misprinted on the last report. So apologize for that. But 5% so far this year, that actually is very much in line with our prediction. If you go back to the very first video that we did this year, at least, talking about our predictions for 2022, we said we're estimating about 5% by the summertime for appreciation and 10% by the end of the year. That's still what I'm expecting to see happen. When you're talking about just overall for the different price points and the different categories there, we do have less than 2 months supply still, up to 500,000. So under 500,000, we're still very heavily favoring sellers. And then when you get, we're still technically a seller's market all the way up to 1.5 million in Ada County. Then we get into a balanced market between 1.5 and 2 million, and then above 2 million is technically a buyer's market right now. So that's not surprising for those upper end price points because our local jobs don't support those price points very much. But we're likely to see this area where we see this 2,400 homes sold in the last 12 months, 1,500, 1,600. We're likely to see that number grow, especially the 350 to 400, because we're seeing more and more of those homes become available as well. 17 days is the average days on market, which is up 1 day from last month where we had 16 days. I would say that the average days on market overall is actually coming up more than that, so I would likely continue to see that rise. I wouldn't be surprised if we ended the year with average days on market somewhere around 25-ish, maybe, plus or minus a couple. The average absorption rate, so if no new homes came on the market and they continue to sell at the current pace that they've sold over the past 12 months, we would be completely sold out of everything available in 2 months. That's the first time we've been over 2 months in a while. So average sold price being the 606. The average asking price in MLS right now is just under 750, and then the average home that's marked pending in MLS is 663 right now. So that's still showing that prices are likely going to continue to rise. Now, if you recall, the pending number, we don't have a spot in MLS where it says this is the price where the offer was accepted. So we don't actually know what number homes are pending at. We just know when they sold, what they sold for, and then of course what sellers are asking. So I like to see this as what sellers are hoping for, what they're potentially getting, and then what they're ultimately ending up with. So the potentially getting and then ultimately ending up with, that's kind of seeing the delta of about 60,000 there shows that I think prices are going to continue to rise just because of that number right there. Top 3 areas in Ada County. Coming in first, we have North Boise, so the North End, foothills, etc., downtown core areas, almost 10% already this year. 837,000 for the average sales price in North Boise. And then Star coming in at number 2 at 8.8%, so 655 average sales price out there. And then Southwest Meridian right behind them at 8% so far this year with an average sales price of just shy of 700,000. So that's the top 3 areas. North Boise and East Boise are consistently the top 2 areas for weathering the storm. They're the first to come up and the last to come down in prices, the overall prices. Usually, that's what we've seen historically in Ada County. So I'm interested to see if that trend continues as we move forward. But that's kind of just what's going on in Ada County. Time to switch gears and go to Canyon County. So we have overall, again, we'll start with the market trends chart as always. Inventory has risen significantly. Again, we have 528 available homes compared to last year when we had 175 and the year before that when we had 170. So again, we've come up almost 3 times, not quite 3 times, but almost 3 times as much as what we had last year. And then when you look at demand, 252 homes pending compared to 386 last year and 432 the year before that. So demand continuing to diminish there. When you compare to what we had this time last month, 271 pending to 252, that's staying relatively consistent, but is down month over month. And then I'm anticipating July to be down even further once we get to that point, just being in the middle of July. But that's just a pure guess at this point. Then when you're looking at the number of closed sales, we have 286 homes that sold this time this year, 361 that sold this time last year, and then 359 the year before. So 286 is quite a drop from the 359 and the 361 that we're seeing. That's anticipated to continue to be the trend as demand falls off as well. When we're talking about the year-to-date appreciation, though, the average sold price is still up 7.2% so far this year. So the average sales price in Canyon County now is just over $431,000, anticipating that will likely end the year around that 10% number that I was quoting again at the very beginning of the year for my predictions. When you're looking at just kind of the breakdown over the absorption rate and over the different price points that you have, again, we have less than 2 months supply up to 400,000 in Canyon County, and then under a 3-month supply up to 800,000. So Canyon County has less inventory according to their absorption rate than Ada County does, with just under 2 months, 1.7 month supply. 16 days on market is the average days on market for Canyon County, and that's actually the same that we saw this time last month, that which I found interesting because I was anticipating days on market to be continuing to rise fairly equally in both Ada and Canyon County, but Canyon County stayed the same month over month there. Then when you have the average sold price of $431, again, kind of looking at basic predictions, we have an average asking price in MLS right now in Canyon County of 558,000, with an average pending or average price of all the homes that are pending in MLS at 481, and then of course the 431 what they've sold for over the past 12 months. So again, I like to see this as this is what sellers are hoping for. Potentially this is what they're getting because we don't have a specific pending slot, so we don't know what homes are pending for until they actually close, but these are the ones that are marked pending in MLS, so we can kind of anticipate that we're getting close to that asking price because the ask to sold price ratio is still above 100% for the time being in Canyon County. So I'm anticipating the delta of about 50,000 here to continue to push prices upwards. Again, not by a whole lot. We're not going to see another 30% year, probably not even a 20% year in Canyon County. I'm again guessing we're going to see about 10%. When you're looking at the top 3 areas for Canyon County, we have 12.1% coming in at number 1 for Greenleaf. Average sales price out there for 80. In Parma, number 2, we have 11.4% so far this year. So the average sales price in Parma, 365. And then Middleton coming in at number 3, which has the highest average sales price, but has appreciated 9.9% so far this year. So we've seen the average sales price come up almost 10% in Middleton this year, which is incredible, actually. Fun thing with interest rates, because that's what's up next, is they came down almost a half a point this week. So between 4th of July and this week, we saw that dip. So you can see dip right off. So now the average interest rate for the nation for a 30-year fixed rate mortgage, according to Freddie Mac, is 5.3%, and it was 5.7 last week, and then the week before that it was above 5.8. So we kind of came back down to what we saw this time last month, because we had 5.2 this time last month. So it kind of came down back to levels. It might be leveling off. We do still have reports, according to Freddie Mac and other reportings, that the Fed has indicated they're still planning on raising rates. So if and when they do that, the interest rate is likely to follow for mortgages, because that's usually the trend that happens there. But with the higher rates, we've seen a national drop-off in decline because affordability is no longer there, because interest rates coming up greatly affects buying power. I've gone into that in other videos, so I'm not going to talk about that here. But 5.3% is pretty good coming back down, because we're not up at that 6% number. Though by the end of the year, it's possible that we see interest rates at about 6%. So if you're thinking about moving this summer or potentially even this fall, now is a great time to meet with somebody that you trust. I'm always available to be interviewed. I'd like to give you the information that I have, and then you can make a decision on whether or not we are a good fit to work together. The reason I say now is a good time is because a typical closing time frame is still about 30 days from contract acceptance, so once an offer is accepted, all the way until you get to the closing table, sign the paperwork, and get the keys. That's about 30 days, so that's a month out. So even if you started today and you're planning on moving in August, well, today being, June 8th? So June 8th, you're going to be looking at, even if you went out and signed an offer on a house today, you're probably looking at the first week or second week of August as your moving in date for your typical closing time frame now. So that's why it's always good to get started earlier than later. And then if you have a home to sell, now's a great time also, because you want to get your preparations underway if you have them. And that way contractors are still pretty busy. Even though the market as a whole has slowed down, contractors have not yet. So if we have preparations, it's important to get them on the schedule as early as possible. But of course, if you're in a hurry, there's nothing that says we can't get your house ready to go and get it on the market next week. It just depends on you and your specific situation and goals and wants and needs there. So that's my 2 cents about if you're moving sometime in the near future. Now is better than later to talk to your real estate professional. It doesn't mean you have to be, on the market tomorrow. Maybe you aren't planning on moving until, November, September, October. I know I kind of did that backwards, but maybe you're not planning on moving till much later this year. It's still not a bad time to sit down and meet with somebody to really talk about your options. That way you can prepare accordingly. At least I like to plan, so I like to say that planning is good. Then when we're talking about, here's the predictions for the rest of the year. First off, inventory likely to continue to rise. It's going to likely stay above 1,000 available homes through the fall. That's what I anticipate seeing, because I don't see anything coming down the pike that's likely to jumpstart and really boost demand unless interest rates come down. Interest rates, right into my second point, interest rates are likely to rise. Don't be surprised if we see mortgage rates upwards of 6% by the end of the year. We were just at 5.8 a couple weeks ago, but now, as you know, we're down to 5.3% for the average. Now, one thing with interest rates, the numbers that I'm quoting here, the averages, don't indicate what your specific interest rate is going to be. Different lenders can offer different things, and everybody has a different financial situation with their credit and things like that. So interest rates will vary. So it's super important to meet with a real estate professional that knows some great lenders that they can connect you with and go over your options, because right now I have one of my lenders, or actually two of them, have some really great rates. So just let me know and I'm happy to get you connected with them. Then going into demand, in migration from other states, that's still happening. We're likely going to continue to see that propping demand throughout the Treasure Valley and then other cities around the nation that are quote unquote unaffordable compared to the metro areas that they're coming from. But we do think that prices will continue to stabilize. We don't see prices going up drastically. We don't see prices coming down drastically, at least not yet. Some homes are going to be more affected by this than others. And what I mean by that is, like, say your home is in not a super desirable area, or maybe it backs up to a busy road, or one of those things that people generally don't love. Because you have more homes that you're competing against, your home is going to be more impacted by the fact that it has, isn't in a great neighborhood, or isn't in, or backs up to that busy road, or things like that people in general don't like. So if you have something like that and you're wondering how your home fits in to the market, just reach out. Even if you don't have something like that, you have a house that you're like, oh, I have nothing negative about my house. You can always reach out and see how your home really just fits into the market, because it really depends on your home and your situation, but prices overall are stabilizing. Again, like if you have some of those negative things, your price is probably lower now than what you could have gotten earlier this year or last year or whatnot, because buyers just didn't have options, but now they do. And maybe your house is in a better area than that, or has better improvements than others in a neighborhood or whatnot, and yours are going to be better and likely higher price than what your neighbors are getting. So the one thing with prices is, because people aren't paying ridiculous prices over asking and whatnot, because you don't have super big competitions on listings and things, you're not likely to get that just outrageous price that maybe your neighbor got earlier this year or last year, because wasn't a realistic price. That was the market of the moment. As we know, the market's always fluctuating, but with that, my reason for bringing that up is, it just comes down to pricing your home right and having an agent that knows how to interpret the actual comparable sales. Because previously, you'd look at the comparable sales and go, okay, this is the floor because prices are appreciating drastically. Now you kind of have to look at the comparable sales, determine how far back they were, and go, okay, maybe that's the ceiling. We can't go higher than that because prices aren't appreciating drastically. We're seeing prices kind of flatten. So that's just kind of my 2 cents there. We are still projecting a 10% increase in the average sales price by the end of the year, though, overall. So year-to-date average sales price will likely increase. And then competition is going to continue to be modest. We're no longer a frenzy. Like I said, buyers are going to be less likely to compete against other offers, and then sellers are no longer going to get those ridiculous selling prices. So as a seller, even more important to make sure your home is going to stand out against the competition, both in price and condition. And then there are fewer buyers out there, lots of competition, so make sure that your home is one that the buyers want to flock to and choose. And so also, in addition to having a good price and great condition, make sure that you have a great agent that knows how to market your property, because you could have an awesome price and you have the best house, looks amazing in person, but maybe the photos are bad, or maybe the description is like, oh, it's a 4-bedroom, 2-bathroom. There you go. Come see it, enjoy. Like it lacks all that creativity. Well, while buyers are flipping through online, scrolling on their phone through Zillow, or maybe even homes that they see on Facebook or social media and things like that, they're going to flock to the ones and pay attention to the ones that look the best. So it's super important to stand out in that regard. And then also agent relationships, because so many times have I done deals where it's just because I knew the other agent, or the other agent knew me. And so we wanted to work together, and so we made it happen. So it's important to have that behind you as well. And then on a flip side, as a buyer, it's still important to have your ducks in a row. Don't get that, oh, we don't have to compete anymore, I can just shop for a house without a pre-approval and all of those things. No, you probably shouldn't still try to do that, because it's still going to be imperative. Sellers still want to sell their house, so they're not going to accept an offer from a buyer that doesn't show that they can actually buy the house. There's no reason for them to take it off the market, because it'll actually hurt them if for some reason you're not able to qualify as a buyer and then go back on the market for that seller. Everyone's going to go, well, what's wrong with that house? And then with so much other competition, that house now will probably sell for much less, just because they took an offer on a buyer hoping that they'd be able to get pre-approved. So because of that scenario, it's not likely. So make sure that you're getting pre-approved, and make sure that you're, adequately saving for things, and just kind of doing the right stuff to get your ducks in a row. And the nice part about our market right now, especially for buyers, is it's not going to feel nearly as chaotic as it did before. Because before it was like a house comes on the market, you have to go look at it that day or you're going to miss out. Now we can actually schedule, like, okay, let's wait until Thursday afternoon. We'll pick 5 houses and we're going to go look at those 5 on Thursday afternoon. And all 5 of them are probably still going to be available. That's true. We can actually do that now, and we haven't been able to do that for a couple of years, so that's fantastic. And then in addition to that, you're able to negotiate. So make sure you have an agent that knows how to negotiate and stand up for your best interests. So maybe that's getting some nice repairs. Maybe that's getting your closing costs paid for by the seller. Maybe that's also getting less than asking price, things like that. So we can finally start to do that again as a buyer, and just take advantage of it when you can. Well, that's kind of the wrap of what I have going on for Market Dynamics June 2022. If you have any questions whatsoever, please feel free to reach out. My number, 208-914-1095. And if you're interested in setting up a consultation, you can also do that on my website, so www.barksrealestate.com. Under the Our Services section, there's a way to schedule an appointment right on my calendar with a few clicks. You fill out a form with your information that says, I'm a buyer, I'm a seller, here's my address, or here's my questions, and then you, bam, put it on my calendar, and we get ready to rock and roll. So that's what we have. Hope everyone has a great weekend, and we will see you next week for Market Watch.